Item G2, discussion, action, and publication of ordinance number 771, amending chapter 3 of the Municipal Code of Ordinances pertaining to animals. Mr. Knull?
Good morning, Mayor Pro Tem, and Commissioners.
Yeah.
So just to preface some things a little bit, you guys all have this nice thick packet, right? I hope it's all in color for you guys because the colors are important. So anything in red is an addition. Anything that's black with nothing through it is unchanged. Anything that's green currently exists in the current Code of Ordinances and is being moved. So even if it shifted a line, it's now green. So we also added some comments to show where things were referenced from, where they were taken from, where I got the idea from. This has been a very highly collaborative project, and I hope to keep it that way. So this is by no means what I plan to put out there to the books. I want to keep it collaborative. I've worked with Manager Whitehead on making sure that it stays collaborative and that the community is involved with any changes that we have. So that being said, we have really big changes. First one being on page 18, penalties. So right now, courts do not want to enforce our animal control ordinance. They enforce very basic things, but they really don't want to because there's no set penalty. It's very up in the air of what they can and can't do. So Article 3 penalties on page 18, and I'm hoping that you guys don't have double-sided and I'm giving you a wrong page.
Good.
So go back to that. That new penalties.
201. Okay, thank you.
Yes. So that new penalties article is created mostly out of section 1-10, which is our general penalty for all city ordinances. But it also includes a couple of different sections under that article. One for restitution, which allows the judge to allow a conviction to go straight back to a victim. So say an animal bites someone and there's damages and things like that, rather than the judge fining a perpetrator, things like that, that money, instead of a fine, will go straight back to a victim to pay for medical costs, things like that, rather than the victim having to go through a separate civil case. So what I found is restorative justice is a really big thing for a growing community, right? And the community wants to feel like they're getting some sort of justice with what's going on. And a lot of the time, people don't want to get someone in trouble. They just want to go to court, get money for any damages caused, and call it that. So this restitution section under our new penalty section would allow a judge to do that. The penalty will not change from what it currently is. This is just specifying for this chapter, these are the penalties based on what already exists. So penalties are not getting stronger with this revision. I would just want to add that as well, because I know the community will be looking at that. They're not getting any more harsh.
Sorry.
Our next one. So I've been working with Tara and I've been working with Angela on things like that, like this revision to ensure that we are helping out the shelter the best we can. So some new things that you'll see added into the revision is a companion animal microchip requirement. So what a lot of cities are doing is replacing their current city animal license process with a microchip requirement. The reason that they're doing this is because microchips are permanent. Once you register them, it's consistently there. So what I plan to bring to you guys, and you guys can shut this down completely, but Tar has already explained that we scan every animal that we pick up for a microchip. If every animal has a microchip, that means less animals going into the shelter. That means more room for owner surrenders at the animal shelter. That means more room for bite cases. That means more room for the rest of the county to house animals that go in. So we want to make sure that every animal has a microchip that we can scan and just get the animal home. And instead of someone having to go pay impound fees, that'll help the community out greatly. The reason that this could replace the city animal license, like I said, it's permanent, right? What people would do is go to the city clerk's office, file their microchip number and their microchip and registration information. They can use any company they'd like. They just file that with the clerk's office. Clerk's office consistently keeps it updated. All you have to do rather than updating your animal license is go continue to ensure that your contact information on that registration with the clerk's office is up to date. Then you don't have to pay an annual or biannual licensing fee for your animal. It's a one-time fee for your microchip. And then you just keep your information up to date with the clerk's office.
So what What identifies a companion animal? Is it the person that identifies it or is it the
So-
entity that identifies it?
So we actually added a bunch of new definitions to clarify a lot of these things. So let me go to the exact page. So companion animal is defined on page 4 under the definitions. So a companion pet or companion animal means a dog or cat that is not a hybrid. And if it's a pet, it's a companion animal. So we're not calling it a pet anymore. It's just a companion animal. That way it just clarifies some things within the ordinance, from exotic animals, wild animals, right? A ferret isn't a companion animal. You're not just taking it around. It's considered an exotic animal. Well, and it could be, but we've also defined companion birds and exotic animals, wild animals for what the state code has for those things. We've added a lot of different definitions to help clarify some things in the code because we have loopholes in the code the size of elephants. I even found sections of the ordinance that still reference the police department handling the animal shelter and being in charge of that. That's how out of date this code is. So another big change that you would see is the multi-animal site permit. I know there's talk in the past, and this may not be where the commission stands on it now, but I know there's been talk in the past with instead of bringing kennel permits, multi-animal site permits to the commission every single time, we would only bring the initial application, and then if anything changes, we will bring it back to the commission, but they'll just continue to update us. We will continue to do an annual inspection, and then we won't bring it back to the commission unless major changes have been done to the site. We've also changed sections for the impounding and the safekeeping sections to help the animal shelter with their current practices. Currently, they're holding for 5 days for an incarceration hold, 5 days for an incarceration hold, and 10 days for a medical hold. Our current ordinance says that you hold for 3 days. That's it. So we're kind of updating to get with the animal shelter's best practices. The entire point of revising this code is to be more community oriented with things like safe keeps, animal shelter numbers getting down, things like that. So this is going to be really controversial. I know that revising an entire code, the community wants to know why we think this is necessary. Well, like I said, we're still finding sections that reference the police department being in charge of the animal shelter. There's still stuff that says that we have to dispose of animals after 3 days, which means euthanize the animal. So we're just trying to update the code, and the intent with this is to be a living, breathing document where we bring it back, not to the commission every year, but we review it at least once a year and say, this is working for us, this isn't working for us. The last time this was revised was in 2022. So, other sections, repeat offenders section was added. So if you have 3 separate counts of animal cruelty, you are deemed a repeat offender, and the court can convict you of a repeat offender and remove your animal from your property for a certain number. I think if you have 3 animal cruelty convictions and you're on a 4th one, you probably shouldn't have the animal. That's my opinion. But this would allow for the court to remove an animal in that specific circumstance. Also, with the animals disturbing the peace section, we have clarified a lot of things in there. Clarified what intermittent, persistent, and continuous barking are, and we've clarified some specific times for that barking. So dogs bark, cats meow, chickens make noises, right? Animals make noises. Right now, we can get a call at any time of the day. Right now, the other animal control officers can be responding and going to a barking dog complaint right now. It's a little unreasonable. Yes.
I'm confused because you said dogs bark, cats meow, and you said chicken. What noise did
I'll defer to a chicken for that to clarify what a chicken.
You don't want an example of that, do you?
Yes.
I think someone
I
can
would
make a
like an
chicken.
example.
Make a chicken, right?
Our kids can make those sounds.
Yeah. So, but we know animals make noise, right? We know animals make noise. So we want to ensure that it's clarified that we can allow animals to make noise,
Right.
but we're specifying what's considered reasonable. Because on top of that, on the weekends, right, we have no weekend coverage for animal control. So law enforcement officers are currently responding and saying, we have no ground to stand on here. Our noise ordinance is too vague for animals disturbing the peace, and not even the judge wants to enforce it because someone can call right now and say, this dog's been barking for 5 minutes and it's keeping me awake. We have to be reasonable with the ordinance. So we've clarified a lot of things in that specific section. Animals and vehicles. So currently, we have a very vague ordinance on that, saying that you can't have an animal in a vehicle unless there's cross ventilation. That's all it says. So
what's cross ventilation?
exactly. So we have clarified that an animal cannot be inside of a vehicle with temperatures 80 degrees or higher without air conditioning being turned on in that vehicle. So a dog can actually go into heat stroke after 15 minutes of being in heat. So if it's in an 80-degree car, that's maybe not very bad for us, but animals have fur, and sometimes animals have thick fur, and sometimes that animal's maybe being left in a car for an hour while someone's shopping in Walmart, right? So if the temperature is above 80 degrees interior of the vehicle, which we have tools that we use to check temperatures of the vehicles, then you have to have air conditioning. If you don't have air conditioning turned on for that animal, it's evidence of a violation of that section. You can be charged with animal cruelty for leaving your animal in a vehicle. It also states that you have to make sure that no matter the temperature, the animal is protected from inclement weather, whether it's extreme cold, extreme heat, wind, anything. So if you're transporting an animal in a vehicle, you can't just leave it in the back of a truck and leave it to fend for itself while you're shopping in Walmart, right? You wouldn't do it with your kid. You shouldn't do it with your animal. I mean, to an extent, right? To an extent. So we also added some new sections to the care and maintenance section of our ordinance, identifying what's considered adequate space. Las Cruces has, this is where I referenced this from, that's why I'm bringing that up. Las Cruces has specifications for each size of an animal for a minimum requirement per animal. So currently our multi-animal site permit doesn't clarify what adequate space is. Our cruelty care and maintenance section doesn't clarify what adequate space is, right? So it's really, really vague. And it was even brought up at the commission at the planning and zoning meeting. What is adequate space? What is considered adequate space? So we've identified what adequate space is. If you look at page 30, turn over to that and I will tell you exactly what it says.
What page on ours?
Should be page. Are you guys double-sided?
214. We're
There
we
you
have
go.
a whole packet.
Oh, yeah.
So 214.
214, there you go. So that's our new care and maintenance section. Basically, with our entire animal cruelty article, I've split up what is cruelty and given it separate sections. That way it closes some enforcement gaps and reduces some misinterpretation of that section. So under to it, go 2 more pages. So you're at 214, should be at 216 is where I'm looking at now. Maybe one up. Right there where it says space. So we've identified that minimum space required for cats. Cats shall have a minimum of 4 square feet of flat floor space and 22 inches of vertical space. And then you'll see for each dog weighing less than 30 pounds, over 30 pounds, up to 65, and over 65 pounds, we have separate space requirements. And even for birds, saying that birds have to have an adequate amount of space to fully stretch their wings, right? We want animals to not only that they're considered birds, right? So we're making sure that all animals have space, because right now we have people putting dogs in crates and constantly leaving them there. And that's not really fair to the animal. We want to make sure that animals have enough room to have fun and move around and be active, right? Under the cruelty care and maintenance section, we also have included a section for environmental enrichment. So environmental enrichment is extremely important to animals. So an example of environmental enrichment for an animal would be a cat scratch pull for a cat, right? How many people do you think have animals? They don't provide them with any nourishment environmental wise, right? They don't have toys, they don't have scratch pulls, they don't have space to move around. That could be considered one, right? If someone wants to use a shoe as a toy for an animal they could say it is one, right? But if it's not a working dog, we have people that just throw their dog out in their yard and give them the bare minimum, right? So bare minimum should be having a toy for an animal, because it reduces aggression in animals. If an animal doesn't have a toy to play with, or even a companion to play with, it can be aggressive, and it can become aggressive because it's bored, right? So that's how you can see animals starting to lash out, especially trying to get out of the yard, because I'm bored, I want to go for a walk. So environmental enrichment is important. So environmental enrichment is defined as allowing the animal to have a toy or something to allow it to groom itself, cat scratch pulls, for example, and it stimulate its mental abilities and stimulate its physical abilities. So just like humans, environmental enrichment is important for animals.
I was saying about a shoe, I mean, I have that for my pets because we spoil our pets, but some people don't have those kinds of funds. So I think when you're looking at that,
Mhm.
you can't, well, it has to be a cat because maybe they can't afford that. They can take care of the
Right,
cat,
yeah.
but they can't afford
Exactly.
these expensive toys.
And that was just simply an example. Something that can be environmental
them-
nourishment, right? My dog will be happy if I tie a rope to a tree and she can tug on it, right? So something like that where, yeah, exactly. A couple of different other big changes that were added, an intact animal permit. So you don't want to get your animal spayed or neutered, that's fine. You can get a permit from the clerk's office that basically says, I don't have my animal spayed or neutered. The fees can be set by resolution, so it can be as low as high as you want. Basically, that's just a way for us to keep track of who doesn't have a spayed or neutered animal, because we want to know which animals are going to go into heat and be attracting other animals. We also want to know which other people are not fixing their animals and potentially using their animals for hobby breeding. Like Tara said, they're on their 15th litter of dumped puppies, right? And we get a lot of calls of, I have puppies, my dog just had puppies, I don't want them, what do I do with them? Right? So they either keep the animals and now they're failing to comply with our multi-animal site permit requirements, or they're dumping them in a box, or they're taking them to the shelter and throwing them at the shelter and saying, this is your problem now. So, go
Can
ahead.
I have some discussion of that?
Yes,
That one scares me a little bit.
yes. And that one's,
I feel like we're gonna have, it's gonna be, the people that are going to comply with that aren't the ones that are calling
yeah,
Tara. That is
exactly.
the ones that that are having those situations. Yeah, they're not gonna be applying. They're not purposely breeding those animals. So
Right. Which is, this is intended to be more of an incentive to get your animals spayed or neutered, right? Because that reduces the amount of unwanted animals. This isn't to say you have to do it. That's why there's the ability to say, I don't want to do it. I'm just going to go get a permit from the animal shelter. And yes, of course, there's always going to be that argument where they're not going to comply. They already don't comply. They're not going to in the future. But we can make that argument with any sort of the part of the section. This is mostly an incentive to get your animals fixed, so we can reduce the amount of it.
yeah, and then I think Tara offered, there was some dogs running loose out in the county. And I think we, as a city, spayed and neutered them or whatever for free, as of my understanding, because it was like we were getting like numerous puppies out of that one litter. I know too much of things.
Was that a few years ago?
Probably 2 years ago.
The Great Pyrenees ones?
Yes.
So there was 4 moms, the same dad for all 4 litters. There ended up being 34 puppies from all 4. He did accept the puppies in on terms that he had to get the animals fixed and bring them in a little over time, because 34 puppies
Yes.
is a lot for a shelter.
Well, it's cheaper for us too.
And he
Pay
gave
for
me
the neuter.
information for Cat and Scars. Cat paid for 2, Scars paid for the other 2 females. So we do have those organizations that are helping getting animals fixed at pretty much a very low cost if anything. And then Desert Haven has their program to help with animals getting fixed at a very low cost. So it's very easy to get a dog fixed, even for those who are struggling. For example, Scars only ask for a $20 donation to get their animals fixed, so they can continue paying it forward to everybody else.
I feel like that's just gonna give us some headaches down the road.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I want to keep this entire vision a collaborative thing between the community. I invite people to call up the office at the police station and request to speak with me regarding questions about this. I encourage you guys to email me or call me and ask questions on it.
How long are we gonna keep this open and revise it and bring it back? When are you planning on?
So this is gonna go for, if you guys approve it for publication, we'll go for publication for 60 days is what I talked with Manager Whitehead. And we plan to have a minimum of one town hall on it, but if we see a lot of interest in it, then we'll have multiple, 2 or 3 town halls to invite the community to come in and express their concerns, or maybe I really like this, but I wish we would change this, or things like that. Because not everything was changed, and I worked with Best Friends Animal Society as well. They've reached out to me because they saw the revision and they wanted to include some things.
Cool.
They've also brought up some things like community cat programs, which I didn't include in this revision because I know in the past we brought that up, and it's a very, very divisive issue. But if the community ends up wanting community cat programs, I'm not against it, and I'm not against putting things like that into this revision before we publish it. So the intent is to stay very, very collaborative with the community. I don't want people to be surprised, like, this just came out of nowhere. Why are we doing this? I want people to be aware of it.
And then I'm assuming legal will look at it like, I saw somewhere in there about, if the officer feels like this dog is being neglected, they can take that dog on the spot, like, is that legally?
I'm going to make some general comments
Okay.
with the whole situation.
And then, I know I'm jumping ahead and I'll let you get back, but just my questions. Livestock, can we overrule a state law in things?
We
like
cannot.
that? So
So-
state law says that it's a fence out state, but our thing is saying if livestock is going like,
So the way that ordinances work, and it's the same way with state law and federal law, right? So you can be more strict, but not less strict.
okay,
So the state says, yes, it's a fenced out state, but we can require that animals are fenced in on a property and that they can't be allowed to run at large and cause a nuisance. State law says that animal cruelty is hitting a dog, right? And that's not exactly what it says, but state law for animal cruelty is very, very vague. We can say that animal cruelty is not providing a clean living space for your animal, not providing adequate space. So we can be more strict, but not less strict.
I understand. And so I know a lot of the times the river is down, we have cattle coming across and just things like that. I also wanted us to err on the side of common sense. And if that is happening, like, I don't think that rancher should be cited for those things.
And I will state that though it's caused a very big nuisance in the past, and I know we have a lot of community members that get upset with cows crossing the river. I haven't cited for that personally. We normally can contact the livestock owner and they come pick it up.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing with any violation of this section. If we can get compliance, we're probably not going to cite you for it as long as we can get the compliance and it's reasonable, right? So we know that New Mexico is a fenced out state. We understand that we're in a rural area. Citing might be a little bit too harsh unless there's some extenuating circumstances like this cow is now causing property damage and is a very big nuisance rather than just crossing the river and munching on some cactus.
And
So-
fertilizing the baseball fields.
Right. So that's with anything in this section. Is we tend to err on the side of discretion with it, and this ordinance revision definitely opens it up for us to be a lot more discretionary with it, and allows the animal control officer to not only know exactly what the violation is because it's a lot less vague, but allows them to have their discretion exercised and not cite or cite depending on what they feel is necessary. But the violations are very clear in this revision.
Well, I want to follow up on Amanda's point about livestock, as in cattle. I would say that's what we're really talking about. And we say, well, then, well, yeah, I mean, he's the permittee and they get out, he'll go get them so that, but then the next person comes along and say, well, we don't like that rancher and I don't like livestock, and so I'm gonna find the wazoos, and I don't want us to go down that path. I think this is an agriculture community, and if we're turning into a city, then I'm gonna find that rancher because he's over here, then that's not who we are.
No,
Yeah,
I would.
And so that, when you're saying that's up to interpret, we don't want that kind of door to be open so that animal control officer, the city manager, the commission says, well, we don't like cows because I'm from New York and I don't want cows in my yard. I don't want us to have a reputation as a community that we've lost our roots that far.
So our current livestock ordinance for running at large for livestock is section 3-99. And it says that an animal owner or livestock owner can be cited for allowing livestock to run at large regardless of the origin of that animal. So it already actually says
But we
that
haven't
those,
ever done it.
we haven't, no, because they haven't they haven't created enough of a nuisance every single time to feel like we felt it was necessary to cite them. They're very responsive. They're very responsive with us and they come pick it up.
Then it's again up to interpretation, I guess.
Right.
And it's
So-
all that they allow and it's-
Yeah, so I haven't touched that one in this revision because that was one that I really wanted to talk with the community about and see what they felt. Our current, like I said, our current section says that a livestock owner can be cited for allowing livestock to run at large regardless of the origin of the animal. So even if the animal runs from hatch and comes here, which I'm not saying it's possible, but it could, right? They can still be cited in hatch for violating our city ordinance. So that's the way it's written now, and I haven't touched that in this section because I want to, and I haven't touched a lot of things in here because I want the community to come forward and say, you know what, we like the way that is, or we don't like it, we should adjust it this way, right? And you've already brought up a great point. So,
Don't want to lose our roots.
right.
Right, yeah.
So those are the biggest changes, and I know that there's 71 pages of things here. That's simply because it doesn't actually take anything out. It just crosses it out if I'm deleting it. There's probably only 30 pages of changes here in this entire code. But the biggest changes, like I said, were a companion animal permit or microchip permit to get your microchips for your animals and potentially replace our current city licensing process with that. I haven't taken out the licensing section because I wanted to bring that forward and see if the community likes the current licensing process or if they want to replace with a permanent solution like microchipping, like a lot of other cities. We've also included one other probably very controversial section regarding guard dogs. So we haven't run into it yet, but I have tried to go through and tried to future-proof our ordinance just in case we have something that comes up. That way we have something regulating it. So guard dogs are a common thing that cities are starting to regulate now. Basically, it's not a companion animal. It's a type of working animal that you're using to guard a premises only on your premises, not allowing it to walk around, right? If I have a commercial business that I want to have a dog at, I can have a dog protecting my commercial interests, like a junkyard dog, for example. And this allows someone to get a permit to regulate that potential liability for that person. So that's a very detailed section, and I encourage you guys to look at it and see if there's any changes. But some stipulations require that you can't be within 500 feet of a school or a public park or a dog park. You have to have proof of liability insurance for that animal and a bunch of other things that I took from specifically from Las Cruces and Santa Fe County, things that regulate guard dogs already. Any questions
Okay.
at all?
Well, and we do appreciate that you have it in different colors so that everybody can see what you're striking and
Yes.
new, so it's very easy to follow along the changes.
So the red is what you're adding.
Yes, anything in red is an addition. Anything that has a black strike through, I'm deleting it. Anything that's in green currently exists in the document, but it's just moved. You might even see some blue in there, which is a format change, but other than that, those are the three main colors.
I want to make just a couple of comments. Yes, spent a little time with this last night and made about 3 or 4 pages of notes, but now that I know we have 60 days to report, I won't labor everybody to go through all those notes. I want to say that this covers virtually everything within the city. So you did a very comprehensive plan and it covers everything, but it also lends itself that if somebody wanted to, you could write 100 tickets a day.
Right.
You know, because there's a lot of violations that currently exist and will exist within the city. So
Right.
officer discretion is going to be very important here.
Right.
Education for our public is going to be very important here. We're going to have to roll this thing out. And the third thing I'm going to say is we're going to have to contact our magistrate judge and apprise him of this situation, of our new ordinances, and let him know what's going on, and get their take to see what they're going to
Right.
want us to enforce and how they're going to deal with it.
Exactly.
Remember that a citation isn't the end of it. It's a report to the court, right?
Exactly.
And so if you have an officer that writes 30 tickets because there's 30 cows
Right.
in the park, that's only a ticket. It doesn't mean anything. You go to court and the judge will make the final decision about whether that citation is going to stand or what the direction is going to be. So that's our kind of our check and balance into the system. So I think it's going to be, so that judge component, I think, is going to be an important thing too, especially if you apprise the judge of what we're having issues with and asking for support. That could help our
Exactly.
our situation. So I think that way I don't have to go through all these. I think I'm
Yes.
going to just say we have 60 days to comment. We need to make sure that everybody gets a hold of this thing. We need to contact some folks and get their feedback, and then we can look at this.
Yes. And like I said, I encourage people to ask me questions. I encourage people to ask you guys questions that you can bring to me. However people want to voice their concerns, I'll be working with Carrie as well to see if maybe we can get something like an online QR code that people can scan and look at this and say, hey, I really don't like that. And we can look at it. To an extent, I know that people don't maybe want to change certain things, but certain things do need to be changed, right? We still have places that say that the municipal court is in charge of enforcing this, and we don't have a municipal court, right? So certain things do need to be changed, just regardless of how people feel about it, because technicality wise, it just needs to be, and certain things need to be kept in there because of legality terms and things like that. So there's some extents that we can't go, but I would love to hear what the community thinks on any change that we make here.
And I would just like to say, like, thank you for taking this. It looks like you've put a lot of time in here, and being the boots on the ground, I think you're seeing what needs to be changed the most and how that goes. And having these public forums where you can explain where you're coming from on things, and then what law is and certain things of that nature. Again, with Roth, I have questions too and comments, and I'm glad we have 60 days to kind of look through this and go. So I do want to just point out that things like, maybe the county's not as pertinent to this, but like Elephant Butte and Williamsburg are cities, and how are we going to enforce certain things on them through our animal shelter and things like that?
Yeah, so the way that currently works, as you guys, I'm sure are aware, we have MOUs with them where we enforce ordinances that they've adopted. So currently, Elephant Butte and Williamsburg mirror our current ordinances, which can turn into an issue because we have some issues with our ordinances, which is why we're revising. But anything that has to do with the animal shelter, once it's at the animal shelter, it's in our jurisdiction,
Right.
and we have the ability to enforce it.
I guess maybe more my thing was going back to the intact. Like, we want them to come in and apply through the city, but they're their own cities. Like, are they going to adopt that too? And they have to go and apply for a intact animal permit. So just things like that.
Yeah.
Again, we could keep talking about this for hours. So
Yes.
We certainly are going to share this ordinance once it's approved
Yes.
with those other communities and see if they'll want to make any changes.
Exactly.
I'd like to make some comments.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Officer, for putting this together. And I was not involved actually in putting this together, but in order to prepare today, I did actually go through this yesterday. So I
that's good news.
have a general idea of where things are. So as I understand it, the first 14 pages are definitions. And then I think it's pages 15 through 52 basically are the general ordinance provisions.
Right.
And then I saw pages 53 through 71 are all deletions.
Right.
So here's my first question. Because as I understand how to read this, the green text is not really a change. It's basically you're putting in a different position.
Correct. Yeah. So one of the big things that you see and why there's kind of a lot of red in these pages full of just deletions is because the entire ordinance was restructured to have a better flow. So there's a lot of things that maybe even in red that aren't actually changed. They currently exist, but they're
Just move.
marked red, but everything's just in a different location because it's improving flow.
So my question is, if I saw in page 50 through 71, there is a lot of green text. So I was trying to understand why would something be moved to that port and then be deleted?
So the original place that it was moved from has a green strike through it.
Okay.
So if it has a green strike through, that's where it originally existed. So if you look on the very first page, for example, administration of the chapter is crossed out and that's all in green. That's the original location of where administration of the chapter would be. And now it has a green underline for the new location. So it's really hard to tell exactly where it was moved to. But it was moved.
I just didn't understand why,
Yeah.
why we'd be moving something to delete the section when we could just delete it right there where it was. That's what I didn't.
So that's kind of what Microsoft Word did. I kind of saved myself some time and I downloaded and edited the current ordinance to match formatting purposes. But then I allowed AI to basically go through and make sure that all of the changes that were removed are strike throughs. Anything added is in red. So AI did that, which is why it looks a little bit wonky. But I did go through and confirm that nothing was taken out that shouldn't have been by AI because we know that there could be errors. I did go through and do some quality control to make sure none of that happened, but it does just end up looking a little bit wonky. So formatting wise, this is not the best thing to look at.
Well, what I did yesterday is that I read the definitions and I wrote down about 10 of them that I think might deserve future discussion. And it's really important. The definitions are always really vital because really that sets the tone for the rest of the ordinance as these words appear in the actual laws itself. So I went through those. I did not read word for word the body of the ordinances from page 15 to 53, but I did write. What I did is, in my experience, like handling these cases in municipal court, I wrote down the sections I knew are going to be coming up in court.
Right.
They come up like almost all the time. So I'm prepared to actually at least tell the commission where these things are to be found. So I can do that. Let me give you an idea as to why the definitions are so important. In fact, the very first page 1, abandonment of animals. It says abandonment of animals means to desert deliberately and or to relinquish the supervision of care of any animal, regardless of age or condition, on one's premises or property other than one's own without permission. Now, for example, using the word deliberately is very important because now we're talking about its intent. The way abandonment of animals was written before is you didn't actually have to show intent. If an animal was abandoned, had not been provided sufficient food or water for a period of time, that in itself was abandoned. Now, by using the word deliberately, now you're talking about a person's state of mind. So, and it's like that through all these definitions. So I want to just caution that something, I say caution, you did a great job. But I mean, there's things here that we really need to look at as to really how it's going to be interpreted by the court. So I had that. And then, like I said, I wrote down the ordinance numbers which I thought were really important, such as seizure of animals is 3-8, 3-7 restraint of animals, 3-91 animals disturbing the peace, and there's several more that I wrote down.
Right.
So I just want you to know that I went through that. It will be helpful to the commission because I know you got a lot to read. Here's a lot going on. I wouldn't mind writing a memorandum to Gary if you want me to, and I could just basically say, here's where I think the things you might want to be focusing on and the things that I found. I'm not necessarily going to say this is I disagree with a particular ordinance or whatever because I want to hear from the commission. I want to hear from the workshops, but I'm willing to say these are the things that I saw that we might deserve further discussion. So, I mean, I just let you know, I'm open to you if you want me to.
Yeah, and so the person that I worked with, with Best Friends Animal Society, that's the correct name, right? Best Friends Animal Society. Yeah. So the person that I worked with them is actually their legal representative. They serve on their legal team, and she went through and reviewed everything to basically she's familiar with animal law. I took what she said with a grain of salt to an extent because I understand that she's not our lawyer. I understand that she's not our legal team. But she did have some really good points that did make me go through and look at things like, for example, what Jay brought up. Now we're talking about someone's state of mind with deliberately abandoning the animal. So now if someone doesn't intend to abandon their animal, but does abandon their animal, it's now deemed an uncared for animal. If you look at the uncared for animal section, it's now deemed an uncared for animal where we can apply for a warrant to seize the animal or pick it up as a safekeep, which is kind of currently the process that we have.
The definitions are also important because they intertwine with each other. We were talking about companion a little while ago. Now, actually, companion uses the word hybrid, and then really in that definition, the word hybrid here, I did see a definition for female hybrid, a feline hybrid. So yeah, I just thought, reading one definition sometimes needs to be compared to another definition to make sure that they're
Right, exactly.
compatible.
And did you say you wanted to?
I'm happy to do it for you. This is what I'm saying.
I think if you have some concerns, I think we'd like to iron out those concerns. So
Okay.
if you wouldn't mind and presenting the document to Mr. Knull or to the city manager and just say, these are my concerns and perhaps those can be addressed.
Let me reiterate, I think this is a wonderful job, and I appreciate your efforts. I really do. I just saw things that maybe could be problematic down the road that I was wanting to.
Yes, that's exactly why I wanted to make this collaborative.
And it's really nice, you put your reference where you were getting these things.
Yes.
I think you did a really good job. We just see it. Now we all have to read it.
Yes, this is simply version 1, and I will be doing changes probably even before the town hall based on what you guys send me and ask me. That way we can continue through with what the community is thinking.
So if we go through a motion and we just for publication of ordinance, we're not going to enforce this for at least 60 days and until we get final approval. So this is just a alerting mechanism for us right now.
Yeah, we'll bring it back on October 8th for the
For
final
final,
adoption and public hearing, but we are gonna do the workshops in between.
In between. And then October 8th, they can still,
Yeah, they'll still have the public hearing, so they can still speak during that. You guys can make any other changes you need to at that
Okay.
point as well.
That'd be good.
thank you.
And I would like to say too, even if we do approve this right now as is, which I know we're not going to, even if we were to approve this right now and say, you know what, this is our new ordinance, we wouldn't even enforce it for probably 30 days. We would allow the public to catch up and go with some education rather than enforcement. Minus a few things, running at large is always going to be a violation.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Well, I just realized that during our fall fiesta, we're gonna have an adoption event with the shelter and Desert Haven and Cat and Stars, and this would be a great opportunity for Sir Knull to bring this information to disseminate to the public as it.
And I definitely do plan to be out spreading the word on this.
Yeah.
Just not really.
Booth.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a free booth.
How nice of you. You're so nice. So generous.
All right. Any further discussion?
Mayor, just a couple of points, right? Really, really proud of the team here, right? Really want to thank Officer Knull. Right, when he presented this to me, it felt like the right thing to do was to put it out in its form, right? Not to attempt to send it, let everybody begin to tear it apart, right? Let's do it. Let's go through the process. The team was easy to agree that time needs to, the ordinance only has to be posted for 15 days. But we think this, and when we talk about zoning, we need to do it a little better, right? So this is going to be a good template for us to prepare for those items. I would also remind you, during the 60-day period, if the document changes significantly and it needs more time, we're not going to be required, right? So we would have two opportunities. A, it's either ready to go for a final vote, final public hearing in October, or we simply then publish it for 15 days according to the law, the ordinance, and then it gets its final vote 15 days from the time it's ready. So we've just opened the door for feedback, public comment. We'll do a public workshop. And so I think the team has got a good handle on it. Officer Knull's done a good job. And I think out of this will come a good improved document. So really, really supportive and helpful. Happy with the team, what they've all done. So we would encourage and ask that you support and go ahead and publish the ordinance as presented.
Thank you. All right. No further discussion. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve publication of ordinance number 771 as presented.
I'll second that.
Stars, I have a motion and a second.
Honorable Ingo Hopner,
All right.
Honorable Nona Forster.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Esler.
Aye.
Honorable Destiny Mitchell.
Aye.
Honorable Mary Jo Hall.
All right. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, done. Thank you. Nice job.